Hi everyone, Steve Harrison here, and with me is Chris Hornick. Chris is the CEO and president of HBSC Strategic Services, and he has a whole new model for leadership. He's the author of The Last Book of Leadership. The Last Book of Leadership. Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. Great to be here.
So how did this model come about? I know we were talking earlier and you were explaining just a really cool story of just how this emerged from the work that you're doing.
We've actually been doing digital and organizational transformation for a very long time. And, I've actually searched for sort of a unified, holistic model of leadership for a number of years, and I really couldn't find one. And so really through the process of, trial and error and trial by fire, really trying to help organizations change, this model emerged over a number of years. So, really the unified leadership model that's actually embedded in the Last Book of Leadership, that's actually at the core of this new theory of leadership.
Yeah. So why is the book called The Last Book of Leadership?
Well, there's a number of reasons, but, the primary reason was that I wanted to create a book that if you could only read one book of leadership, like in your career, or if you're only going to read one additional book of leadership in your career, this would be the last book of leadership that you'd really need. And so that was my goal.
Wow, what a great goal, though. And that's fantastic. And what do you feel differentiates the Last Book of Leadership from all the other leadership books out there?
The goal here is sort of the holistic nature of it. And, through all of the consulting work and the, various projects that we've done over the last 20, 25 years, really a pattern emerged. Leadership really can fall into like 5 different categories of really important areas where leaderships can have, pitfalls and missteps. And really those 5 categories, which are sort of the foundational categories of leadership, is really around context, vision, wisdom, power, and outcome. And so, we've encountered issues when large scale organizations are trying to change. It usually comes down to that. And the leaders of those organizations usually have challenges. Usually something in the context has changed. Sometimes a struggle with creating a new vision for an organization. And then there's the idea of leadership wisdom, where a leader may or may not have the appropriate level of character, competency, or presence to really accomplish what they're hoping to. And then there's the aspect of power. How are they actually using power? That's a critical aspect, especially in competitive environments. And then outcomes. Are they able to achieve outcomes and momentum? Those are sort of the aspects of the model at the core.
Wow. I love how you've broken it down. Clearly, you have thought about this, you've lived it, you've taught it, you've shared it. I know at the core of the model is leadership wisdom. So how do you define leadership wisdom, and why is that so important?
The currency of leadership is really trust. And so if you can gain follower trust, you can accomplish a lot as a leader. And, really there's 3 components of leadership, of establishing leadership trust or follower trust. What it comes down to is that the first aspect is character. And so as a leader, do you actually have good intent? Do you care about your people? Do you have conviction? Do you have clarity? The second aspect of character is really integrity. Are you honest, unselfish? Do you treat people fairly? Like in your dealings. The second aspect of leadership wisdom is really competency. So nobody really wants to follow a leader that they deem less competent than themselves. And so really competency has a capability. Are you a capable leader? Do you have sort of the knowledge, expertise, and wise decision judgment that you're making constantly to propel the organization forward? And then do you achieve results? So, do you have the reputation and the credibility really to generate good outcomes? And then there's the X factor of leadership, which is really important in certain contexts. It really is presence. So as a leader, you definitely need courage. So courage actually gives others confidence. And basically, do you have the strength and perseverance to basically push through the very difficult times? And then the last aspect of presence really is connection. So are you able to generate respect and adoration? And you have sort of charismatic interactions with your followers. Those aspects are critical for establishing, leadership trust and follower trust. And basically, those are the aspects that characterize leadership wisdom.
Yeah, I like that too. The emphasis on the interactions. One of the things that you talk about is operational range for leaders. And so we talk about leadership operational range. What do you mean by that? Why is that so important?
The notion of adaptive leadership is critical, especially given sort of the circumstances that leaders lead in today. The context, it tends to be volatile, complex, ambiguous, and those things are only increasing. As we go through technology changes and political changes, and a lot of things are actually changing in the environment for corporations as well as most areas, even in the military, things are changing tremendously quickly. And so adaptive leadership is fundamental. And operational range, really the idea of operational range is that you maintain situational awareness, you have self-awareness, and you also have a strong leadership identity. And, that actually is sort of the inputs to the operational range. But really, operational range is the ability to adapt your power, your communication, the way you process, your leadership process, and also adapt your style and leadership type to the given circumstances. And so this notion of adaptive behavior, adaptive leadership is very critical. And the other aspect of that is that, sort of maintaining your emotional state so that you don't become part of the problem as a leader. You're sort of, self-aware of what's going on internally. That actually enables this adaptive leadership concept.
Yeah, that whole idea of adapting your leadership type as circumstances demand. I think people are familiar with personality types. You talk about leadership types, 10 different types. Tell us more about why are these archetypes? What role do they play?
You can look at leadership types. There's 10 of them, and it's really authority focused, and then there's inspiration focused. And really across sort of the efficient frontier of these leadership types, on the authority side, you'll have leadership types like dictators and commanders and decision makers. And you also have change agents and ideologues. And ideologues are just people who love to follow the rules. And so that's sort of on the authority side of things. On the inspiration side, really, you have, builders, team captains, visionaries, spiritual leaders, and also martyrs. And they're the ones who actually lead primarily through inspiration. And, what we've actually found is that there really are no bad leadership types. It's just that they're very appropriate in various contexts. So, obviously, if there's a crisis or something like that, you want to have sort of the commander leadership type or decision makers. Or, like if you're looking for sort of spiritual leadership during other times, really that's more of the inspiration side. So there really are no bad leadership types. And sort of the metacognitive awareness of what leadership types, like we all have primary, secondary, and tertiary leadership types. And so the metacognitive awareness of those leadership types is critical because it makes you self-aware of how you interact with others, and also leads into sort of that notion of operational range. So you have adaptive behavior by understanding you can take on these different personas.
Yeah. Now, can someone be, if they want, is in certain circumstances, can they potentially be all 10 or 5, or give us a sense of what's kind of realistic or doable as I think about this?
Typically you have 3. That's what we found in our research. And you modulate between those 3. And so, the best leaders of what we found were really ones that have high operational range. And operational range means you can adapt between these various leadership types based on your context, based on the changing context. And so you can have multiple leadership types. The best leaders out there do actually have sort of a wide span of leadership types, so they're not all clustered. And so the ability to be a commander as well as a spiritual leader, that means that you have tremendous operational range.
I like that. So what are some of your favorite quotes from the book?
There are quotes from people throughout history, so there's obviously some quotes there from Napoleon and Julius Caesar and other people throughout history, and Socrates. I kind of like one by William Shakespeare. He basically said something like, "A coward dies 1,000 deaths, but a hero but once." And really, that does sort of point to the notion that courage is foundational to leadership. So you definitely need that. Another one actually comes back to this concept of operational range. And it goes something like, like water, a leader with high operational range can assume many forms. And it's this idea of adaptive behavior again that is so critical to leadership today. So those are some of the elements. There's a lot of quotes in there from famous people like Carl Jung and things like that. But those are kind of two of the ones that come to mind.
How can we learn more about unified leadership and the last book of leadership?
So we actually have a website called thebookofleadership.com. And the book is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and any place where you buy books.
So wherever you buy books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, go now. The last book of leadership. Take your leadership to the next level. Know your types, and just really be the leader that you can be. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Thank you, Steve.